Let's be clear. This isn't another tutorial on syntax. This is something different. It's an explainer designed to fundamentally rewire your intuition, to help you move past the commands you've memorized and finally see the machine for what it truly is, a system for managing a persistent, structured reality. You know the words, right? The selects, the inserts, the joins, but mastery isn't about knowing the incantation. It's about understanding the deep, complex architecture that responds to it. And that gap between knowing the words and seeing the machine, that's the gap we're about to close.
We're going to start at the surface, because this is where most of us begin our journey with databases. And unfortunately for many, it's also where it ends. This is the source of so much fragility in our understanding.
These are the tools you were given. They feel powerful, they feel direct. You learn how to use them, how to combine them, and pretty soon it's just muscle memory. But you have to understand, these are merely the interface. They are a thin, shimmering layer floating on a vast and complex ocean of state.
And this is exactly why that surface-level knowledge eventually fails you. Because when real-world complexity hits, and trust me, it always does, the system starts to break in these horribly predictable ways. Your queries grind to a halt. A schema decision you made months ago suddenly becomes a roadblock. A simple update causes this subtle, cascading corruption downstream. The very meaning of your data starts to drift. Now, this isn't bad luck. It's the inevitable consequence of not seeing the machine.
So it's time to descend. We're going to move past the surface syntax and finally look at the architecture humming away underneath it all. This is where real understanding begins.
At its absolute core, this is what a database is. It's not just a file on a disk. It's not just storage. It is an active machine. Its entire purpose is to take messy fragments of reality and impose a durable, queryable structure on them. It is a system built from the ground up to remember things correctly.
And here's the crucial pivot in thinking. When you manipulate data, you're not just editing a row. You are altering a persistent model of the world. Every change you make has consequences. It's governed by strict rules, and it happens inside a system that is constantly fighting to preserve its own consistency. It's a profound act, far more than just changing a value in a cell.
So let's dig into that. Let's examine the foundations of this world model. How does a database actually build and protect its version of the truth? Okay, we have to address the most common and dangerous misconception out there, that a database table is basically a fancy spreadsheet. It is not. A spreadsheet is loose, it's ad hoc, a canvas for a human to type into. But a table is a component in a much larger machine. It's bound by a schema, governed by constraints, and protected by transactions. They just aren't the same thing.
The real power of this machine comes from the relational model, and the philosophy behind it is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You don't repeat reality loosely. Instead, you represent it structurally. You break the world down into its core concepts, users, orders, products, and then you connect them with absolute mathematical precision.
And what gives you that precision? Keys. You should think of keys as the very skeleton of your data. A primary key gives each row a unique identity, so you never get confused. It says, this is exactly what this thing is. And a foreign key creates a durable link to another table. It says, and this is how this thing is connected to that other thing. These aren't just technical details. They are the fundamental source of identity and connection in your entire system.
You know, we often see constraints as these annoyances, these rules that get in our way and stop us from doing things. But that view is completely backwards. Constraints are the immune system for your data. They are the active, automated protection that ensures your world model doesn't just drift into a state of absolute nonsense. They are the guardians of truth. All right, so with that structure in place, now we can look at the dynamics of the system. How does this machine handle change while protecting its own integrity? This right here, this slide, shows the single most important mental shift you need to make for mastery. A beginner thinks about one row at a time. They want to loop, to iterate, to process things individually. But the database is a machine that was designed to operate on sets. Mastery is about learning to think in those sets, to update, to transform, and to filter entire collections of data in a single, coherent operation. Every time you change something, every single time, you pay a price. And it's a cost that's often invisible if you're only looking at the surface. But believe me, it is very, very real. See, a single write doesn't just change one value. Oh no. It sends ripples through the entire system. It changes the core stored state. It has to update multiple indexes. It invalidates caches. It alters the results of every future query that touches that data. It changes your aggregate reports, it can affect downstream business logic, and ultimately, it changes the truth that your user sees. Every write is a small explosion of consequences.
So how do we manage these dangerous cascading changes? With transactions. A transaction is the database's sacred promise to you. It says, this complex, multi-step change you want to make, it will either complete perfectly as one atomic unit, or it will be as if it never happened at all. It's our primary defense against a world fractured by partial updates.
This brings us up to a higher level of thinking. How do we design these models to be resilient right from the very beginning?
Just think about that for a second. A schema isn't just a technical diagram. It is a philosophical statement. It's your team's current, best understanding of your business domain, made permanent in code and structure. A good schema gives you leverage for years. A bad one is a source of constant pain.
And this idea perfectly illustrates how performance really works. An index isn't some magic button you press to make things fast. It is a structural trade-off. You are consciously choosing to pay a price on every single write, slowing it down just a little, in exchange for much faster reads on a specific query path. Performance isn't an accident, it's architecture.
So, we've gone deep into the machine. We're now ascending back to the surface, but we're not the same. We are carrying a new mental model. We can finally see the machine.
So this is the path. These are the habits of mastery. First, you model reality before you write a line of code. You learn to operate on entire sets, not loops of individual items. You treat constraints as your allies, not your enemies. You wrap any multi-step change in a transaction to guarantee its integrity. And you never, ever forget the cascading consequences of a single write.
This is the core principle. If you take away only one thing, let it be this. A database is not a passive container for your stuff. It is an active, governed system designed to maintain a consistent model of the world. Once you truly see it that way, everything about how you interact with it will change.
And this is the final thought. The goal here is a perceptual shift. The moment that spreadsheet-like grid dissolves in your mind's eye, and in its place you see this living system of structured truth, governed by rules and protected during change, that is the moment you've truly started to master the machine.